So communism also played a very big role in World War II. So the history of communism, it was founded by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. And the reason that communism was created was to end capitalism at first, and obviously it grew from that, but that was the main goal when communism was first created. And Russia was the largest communist country while communism was starting to develop throughout the world. Um, Russia was the first country to take it on, as Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels created it there, and ever since it has been thriving. Next. So, communism in World War II, like I said before, communism played a huge role in World War II. The Soviets of Russia were communists and were against Germany, which were the fascists. And this led many countries to lean towards communism in order to take over Germany. So what this slide really means, so the Russians were communist, and the Germans, like I said before, were believed in the fascism, and so the fascism of Germany allowed Hitler, as I stated earlier, to change the rules and be cruel to the Jews, which other countries saw was wrong, and so Italy and the other Axis powers that believed in the fascism that Hitler was bringing on to Germany joined him in, as allies, and then other countries that believed in ending the fascism joined in Russia's communism in order to get rid of it. And so this was a big deal because this is how the Allies were created. And go back, sorry. And this is what led to the war in the first place, and the war being over, because when Germany lost, fascism was brought to an end, and that is why it is no longer no longer around. Sorry, and fascism was the main reason for World War II. Now that it's over, we have yet to to go into another world war, and fascism and communism will never collide again, hopefully. And that is.
What is democracy? Democracy is the system of our government that gives power directly to the people. With democracy, it allows people to have a sense of a voice and sense of freedom to help us elect government officials that will benefit our country and our culture as a whole. Through democracy, it allows us to have to live in such a free country as we do now in America. I chose to include the quote "of the people for the people" because this is written in the Declaration of Independence, and it's a very important quote to understand because it speaks directly of what democracy means in general. Democracy's impact during World War II. Democracy, most people don't think it played a huge role in democracy, but in reality, it was one of the main reasons we won World War II, because Theodore Roosevelt gave a speech in Detroit that would later be known as the Arsenal of Democracy, because what pretty much happened was our Allied powers needed help with machinery and weaponry and vehicles, and so what pretty much Theodore Roosevelt said was, we're gonna give you guys the choice to either help them or not, but in reality, he asked them to think, what would they do if they were living in that country? Would they help them? So pretty much what Theodore Roosevelt did was he said he pretty much put the ball in their court and said, you can either help them or you can't. So he asked the people this, and luckily the people agreed with Theodore Roosevelt because they trusted him as a president, or else they wouldn't have elected him in the first place, which is another reason why democracy played a huge role, because if we did not elect such a great president such as Theodore Roosevelt to convince these people to help our allied countries, we would not be where we are today, because we would not have won World War II. This was a perfect example of showing that once you put the power in the people, for the most part, they're going to choose the right thing, and they're going to help out our country to the best of our abilities, or else they wouldn't have elected Theodore Roosevelt, or they wouldn't have helped the Allied powers during this time of their need. Next slide. The importance of democracy is to understand that without democracy, we would not be able to live in such a free country as we do right now. Because if we didn't elect government officials and allow people to have a sense of a voice to elect these officials, we would not be able to defend ourselves, and we would be living underneath some sort of group or some sort of dictatorship, and that would not give any power to the people. And so when we elect great presidents such as Theodore Roosevelt, we allow ourselves to understand that this is why we have a democracy, is to elect leaders such as this guy to give us our best guidance, because as a country as a whole, this is who we think is going to do the best job. It's important to have let people have a say in our government, because it helps our nation strive as a whole to elect government officials and kind of just bring forward what our country is trying to do through our democratic republic. Next slide. What is socialism? Socialism is the belief of common ownership of the government. Most people get this confused with communism in the sense that all people are equal, but what socialism is trying to do is it's trying to make everybody in a socialistic government have a vote, pretty much. So it's different from democracy, because in democracy people elect government officials to make the call, but in socialism it's pretty much saying everybody can make a call by voting. Everybody has a voice in socialism, and that's a huge difference between socialism and democracy, because socialism says everybody can vote for something, and in reality it may not be the best idea. Next slide. The impact of socialism during World War II. It was socialists were prominent in the resistance of countries occupied by Germany, and this helped because a lot of the countries opposed Germany instead of just letting them come through and roll them over. Substantial periods of power and like time, however, Germany was able to some sort of promote the planned economy, and they kind of accepted socialism just as a front to get into these countries and then soon later take them over. The importance of socialism is to realize that on the outside, socialism may look like a great idea, because in an ideal scenario, like in the perfect utopian society, yeah, socialism would work, but it's pretty flawed in the sense that once you start giving the power to the people, everybody's going to vote for better stuff for the people, and then the government will kind of collapse on itself, because the government will be so enveloped in the people that there will be no government to rule. And socialism, and it's just pretty much important to understand that, like, once we start understanding what other countries' governments are like, then we'll start to understand like why countries work the way they do.
Axis powers. The three major Axis powers were Germany, Italy, and Japan. The leaders of Germany was Adolf Hitler. The leader of Italy was Benito Mussolini. The leader of Japan was Emperor Hirohito. The alliance began to form in 1936. First, on October 15th, 1936, Germany and Italy signed a friendship treaty that formed the Rome-German Axis. It was after this treaty the Italian director Benito Mussolini used the term Axis to refer to their alliance. Shortly after this, on November 25th, 1936, Japan and Germany both signed the Anti-Comintern Pact, which was a treaty against communism. These three countries recognized German domination over most of continental Europe, Italian domination over the Mediterranean Sea, and Japanese domination over East Asia and the Pacific. What came out of the war? What good came out of the war? As they defeat fascism, longest stretch of time in Europe without a full-scale war in hundreds of years, the end of the colonial era. What bad came out of the war? Between 50 and 80 million people were killed. Approximately 3 through 4% of the world's population at the time, including 12 million plus civilians killed by the Nazis. The beginning of the nuclear age, Soviet domination of Eastern Europe, set the stage for political struggle of the Cold War, which would define the second half of the 20th century. Effects on the economy. World War II forced women into the workplace, ended the Great Depression, and bankrupt Germany. After the war, money was in surplus and people spent money. The American dollar was powerful throughout the world. Effects on society. Wartime posters led to patriotism. Women went to work and became spenders. New inventions, minorities in sports, music, and drama. Fashion improvements, civil rights for women and minorities became an issue. Effects on politics. After World War II, the arms race began. America was no longer isolationist, but a superpower. During the war, the U.S. built internment camps for the Japanese as our fear spread. The Red Scare began, and so did the hunt for communists. World War II drew America into a whirlwind of activity and new ideas. Art, music, and intellectual ideas changed. Society, politics, economy, and even our culture changed, and it was a permanent change. Unfortunately, these changes were at the expense of many lives.